calling Trump Hitler. Now we're calling Trump Hitler again, and we're
Right,
stating that these rallies, Trump rallies, those are Nazi rallies,
right,
right?
right.
It just seems like they're priming the pump to me because
Yeah.
the 14th Amendment clearly states, right? It has a disqualification clause, and it prevents, I'm reading this, prevents public officials who engage in treason from holding a future public office.
But what's the
That's
treason
simple.
that Trump's accused of?
January 6th.
Well, he's actually on the record, and Twitter
Does it?
deleted these. The old Twitter deleted his tweets that told people, hey, peaceful protest only. The
I
old Twitter
understand.
deleted those. So
You're
there's
right.
receipts, and Elon has that now.
No,
And
I
Elon has those receipts.
completely agree. And I know he didn't commit treason. I mean, you can call that it being
Right.
biased, but it's not. It's
But
clear, right?
the greater macro point, I guess, is that's the Democrats' fear porn, right? The Republican fear porn is always, hey, be worried because this is gonna happen next. And
Right,
then now it's like that day comes and nothing happened. Okay, now it's this. Now watch out for this. And it
right.
never ends. That's the Republican aspect
Hmm.
of fear porn, which I find distasteful, but that's the way you have to fight these days, apparently, is like
Well,
herding the masses into your camp.
so I have a question. Have you heard anyone else say this other than me?
Yeah, it's all over the place. Not
No, no,
not the
no.
treason part, not the January
No,
part. No, that's
yeah,
different.
that
No.
Kamala won't certify the election. Have you heard anyone else say
Like
that?
on X, yeah, you see rumors of everything on X.
Okay.
Like there's the latest one is a few weeks ago, wait for the October surprise, and then it's wait for the Diddy tapes because now everything's gonna change and
Hmm.
nothing happened there and then it's always something. Now it's like World War III, and then oh now they're gonna pull a switch with Biden and Kamala. That one turned out to be true, without any primary. But it's always something. Occasionally it will be something true because real life is messy and there are wild things that happen. But
Sure.
for the most
Well,
part, it's just fear porn, and it's this weird thing of like trying to get engaging content versus
Yeah.
trying to sway the masses into your frame of thinking that
mhm.
both sides do. The Republicans do it with untraditional media, and then the mainstream does it, or the Dems do it with mainstream media, which even now CNN's turning on Kamala. Did you see that Anderson Cooper
Yeah.
interview with her?
Yeah.
He's watching out for his own career at this
Yeah.
point.
Well, and even the 60-minute interview where it can't even fully be released yet, right? I don't think it has been released. That
That too.
they just
That too.
released a couple blurbs, and I heard Trump say, and I think this is true, that they took one of her answers from a different question and put it to another question that they had answered. So they were kind of like literally fully editing her response to make it look even better than
Yeah.
how she did, which
Yeah.
is insane. So I don't know if that was true, but
And then
that's
that
nuts.
debate, that only debate they did where um they totally fact checked only Trump,
Right,
right?
right.
And so there's a lot of like
And Vance too. They did that to Vance.
Vance. So point is, this will all soon be over, and we can go back to our normal lives.
So what do you
But
think is going to happen,
Chris is
Dan?
saying January. I don't know. I think nothing's gonna happen. Trump's
Who's
gonna
going to
win,
win?
and Trump, and
Okay.
then that's it. Like he will
Yeah,
be
So
I
president.
think so too. Yeah.
I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying it's a possibility.
But
What
what
I
percentage though? Like, is it enough to be afraid of?
yeah, I
Oh,
think so.
so
I think
what's the threshold? Like,
I think it's
to
like
worry.
probably a good 20 to 30% chance. I don't see why they're going back to their old talking points, which everybody's just sick of, right? Hitler and Nazis.
Right.
Right,
Why are they reinstigating that at this point? You
but
think
the
that's going to have an
entire
effect? They stopped doing it, so their polls are showing it doesn't help.
but the entire military is on the Trump side. The entire border patrol is on the Trump side. The border patrol actually came out. They're supposed to be neutral. They came out and endorsed Trump.
I know they did.
So, like all
That,
these things about watch out for the border because they're gonna just have a militias out there. I mean, if anything, those are pro-Trump people. So I
Yeah.
don't see this happening. I don't see it being executed proper.
so
Like if even if they try to pull it off.
so constitutional things don't happen because of the border patrol and the military.
Yeah, in order to execute something like that, you need a military
I
power.
don't. So that would be new, right? Things happen all the time constitutionally that one side disagrees with, whether it be the military's on that side or not.
Right. Example would be because it happened in
Well, I think
other
he's saying is you
countries.
need force to enforce it.
No,
If they
but
block Trump from entering the White House and Trump gets the military on his side and storms the White House, who cares what? And then they're gonna twist that, and Trump's now dictator.
so constitutionally, you're not president until the election's certified, right?
Right.
So what happens when the vice president, who's responsible for signing off on certification,
Oh, which is her. Oh, I see.
says, I refuse to sign this because Trump broke the 14th Amendment? What
Well, then you
happens?
have grounds to, if that's false, you have grounds for putting her under treason.
Potentially, sure. But what happens? There's no military enforcement of this, right? This is
At
a
some point, there's gonna have to be, though.
no, this would fall to the Supreme Court, right? This is what and there's all kinds of instances of this occurring throughout history where it's a constitutional problem. It's something arises that's written in the Constitution that's never been implemented. So, do I think that's going to happen? No. Do I think it's possible? Yes.
Is it possible enough to where people should change how they live today?
Well, I don't know. The biggest militia in the country just released to all its members. It has a couple of million members, I guess, and said it's on election day. If you're in any of these areas, and it gave the areas, you need to come to the bases.
Hmm.
So
So
they're
those are
preparing.
Yeah,
those are
that's
Team Trump.
yeah, that's
Those are
an
Team Trump,
interesting
though.
one. Hmm.
But
As
that's
far
Team
as yeah,
Trump.
the
That's Team Trump.
signing, yeah, from Kamala.
So what I envision is going to happen, there's a couple of different possibilities, right? So a federal judge in Mississippi just stated that no ballot will be collected after election day, because that's what the Constitution says.
Oh, it does.
Yeah, the last election was
Oh,
unconstitutional.
until that day. Right, right.
So no, actually, the Constitution says the election's on one day, period. All this early
Okay.
mail-in ballot stuff is also unconstitutional. But anyhow,
Guilty.
well, no, it's the fact that they're implementing it, but
Uh,
and it states the president will be declared on
Oh,
election day. So
yeah. I mean, those are good points to know, but
well, the point is though, what happens when all these Democrat ballots come in well after election day? And let's say Kamala's lost by 10
a
electoral
landslide.
votes. No,
Yeah.
not a
Oh,
landslide. It's very close. Well, now they have all kinds of reasons to take this to the Supreme Court. The 14th Amendment, the fact that they're not counting ballots. Yeah,
okay.
I think this can get very messy, and I think it will.
So what happens in
yeah,
those cases?
yeah.
The current president remains, and or you have a temporary government?
I don't know. It's never happened. We'll see.
What happened with Bush and Gore? That one when there was that
That was,
debate.
yeah, that was resolved in like a week. So it went through
Hmm.
three federal, if I remember correctly, because it was a long time ago, 2000. It
Yeah,
went
2000.
it went through three, I believe, federal judges, and a new one each day, and it flipped back and forth between Bush and Gore, what the judges were ruling, and they finally just took it to the Supreme Court. I think that was all in a week. So
So
within a
then,
week, you
wouldn't they
knew.
do something similar here? Like,
You would expect, but they didn't in 2020. There was all kinds of concerns with these mail-in ballots coming in after election day, and the Supreme Court
right.
didn't touch it. And
The
that's
concern
unconstitutional.
was that Pence wouldn't sign off, right? Like, so the same thing
Right.
we're
Exactly.
accusing Kamala of
Of
doing,
potentially doing. Yeah,
he ended up signing off on it, and then the
he did.
Republican Party called him a traitor and all this stuff.
Yep.
Which do you guys agree? Was he a traitor for signing that?
Well, I'm
I'd
not.
like to hear more of his point of why, because dude, did you know he recently supported Harris?
Yep. But
Pence did. I mean, that's
Yeah.
so I'd like to hear a little bit more about what,
I
what happened.
see the issue I took with it wasn't really from him. It was more the Supreme Court not hearing these ballots coming in 3 days later and being counted. That's just totally unconstitutional, and the Supreme Court refused to hear the case. Trump
Mm.
sued for it, and they refused to hear
Yeah.
it.
But what I mean,
Now, my argument would be based on that. Should Pence have signed or not signed based on that information as a coin toss? But again, you're going to face this again with Kamala, I
Right.
believe.
So she's gonna have a coin toss. So if you can't really fault Pence one way or another, you're not gonna, in theory, not gonna be able to fault Kamala one way or
True.
another either.
Sure, if she doesn't sign. But
It-
Right.
now you're going to have a completely different scenario because it's always been signed, the
Right.
certification.
And I'm sure there's consequences to that action on her
Not
end.
signing?
Like,
I'm not sure
yeah,
there is.
like I don't know if she would be accused of treason or because it's never happened where the person that has to sign it is the one that is losing the
That's running for
vote,
president,
right?
right? This is completely new.
Yeah, and I could see all
Right.
the potential fear porn situation. And to your credit, you're saying it's less likely that it'll happen than not, but it's a 20% possibility.
25 is kind of what I'm putting it at.
So people shouldn't change their lives because of
Well,
this.
even if I believed it to be 100%, why would you change your life?
This
I mean,
gets back to philosophy at this point. All roads lead to philosophy.
the only life-changing thing I'm doing is if she wins, for sale sign in my front yard that day.
How much you getting for the Shire, that piece of property in the Shire?
Hopefully a fair amount.
Can you fit in that door?
Where are you
behind
going? Where this is highly unlikely, but where would you go? Or you don't
Yeah.
have to say it if
In
you
that
want
bunker behind him in
I
the
just-
Hobbit hole.
I don't mind saying I just got back from Idaho. I was up
to.
there
Oh, you did? Okay.
for 4 days with my wife, seeing what she liked
Beautiful.
up there.
What's the
Did she
verdict?
like it?
Yeah. What's
Yeah,
the
what's
Yeah,
the verdict?
she liked it more than California.
What?
Oh, really?
hmm
Was
I
it
don't.
sunny when
I
you
d-
went?
I
The picture,
don't.
the video you sent me looked gloomy.
It was gloomy about
Well,
half
dude,
the
it's
time.
October. Yeah, it's going to be gloomy,
It's beautiful up there. It's way
Yeah.
prettier up there than here.
What?
Yeah.
Prettier than California?
Yeah. Now, mind you,
Nature.
California is fairly nice looking year round.
Yes.
Whereas
In our climate.
San
Boise,
Francisco is one of the nicest geographical. If you can remove the homeless and the feces everywhere, it's like one of the nicest like
Sure.
topographies on earth.
if but when I went up there initially in late March, early April, it was ugly. I did not like it at all. Like really
okay.
ugly.
Yeah, because it was just getting out.
Barren.
We're still in
It
winter.
was barren.
Yeah.
It was barren. There was no greenery anywhere, and I do not like
Wow.
not seeing
Yeah.
green.
So it makes you
Um,
appreciate the seasons more, maybe.
What it does
There. Yeah.
Because in
the-
California, you don't really, in Arizona,
it's
too.
just green all the time here. It's
Yeah.
just brown all the time in
Yeah.
Arizona.
Well, Arizona's just sunny all
Yeah.
the time, so you don't appreciate
Right.
like sun until you go
Right.
someplace where there
Right.
isn't any for like weeks.
That's right.
Right.
And then you're like, oh damn.
Well,
This is
That's right.
not so bad after all.
Where Boise's completely different than California is it has an actual fall, and it was beautiful. It was red and orange and yellow and
Nice,
green
man.
everywhere.
So regardless of who wins, you think you're moving or
No, it'll probably stay if Kamala doesn't win.
You won't say his name, will you?
No, if Trump wins, we'll stay.
There we go.
so it's less that Trump. Okay, that's an interesting statement. So
Well,
if it was
there is
Vivek, it'd
caveat.
be the same. If it
There's
was,
there's caveats to that.
yeah,
Even if Trump wins, we still may move. But
right,
less
because
likely.
you still got Newscom for 2 more years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Who's gonna be
Yeah.
president? It'll be Newscom Vivek for 2028, I think.
No, it'll be JD.
Ooh.
JD.
It'll be my thoughts. 2028 will be JD and Vivek will be
Oh,
vice president.
interesting. What about wait, who's gonna be vice?
Vivek. It'll
Okay.
be.
What do you think about DeSantis?
And
think
there's
he's done.
there's many
You think
reasons
so?
why.
Okay.
There's many reasons why it would be JD.
Hmm.
A, I
Dude,
think
he's coming in hot, dude. I like him.
it's not just that.
Smart dude.
There's never
Very
been
smart.
there's never been a non-Christian president of this country, right? So how do you set that
Wait,
up?
JD is non-Christian?
Obama was not.
Vivek
Oh,
is
I
not
see.
Christian. No,
Oh,
he
Vivek
declared it.
is? Oh,
He's a Hindu or Hindu.
No, but Obama was not Christian.
Yes, he was. He declared
Yes.
himself. Yeah, he went
Oh,
to
anyone
church,
can
Christian
declare
church
themselves.
he went to a Christian church for 20 years.
he did?
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
remember what the minister said? He was very anti-America. But anyhow,
Uh,
um, so
And Michelle was a man.
you're right. So
I mean
so
that part it looks suspicious, but then
It does, yeah.
I saw recent pictures of her in college and it's clear she's a female.
yeah,
Okay,
I saw
okay.
that on XT.
but JD's married to an Indian
Oh.
Hindu. So
Oh, that's right.
slowly introduce this, right?
Yeah,
Over 8 years with JD, you prepare the public for Vivek.
Hmm.
That's the way it has to be done. I just don't think
you're right.
America would accept Vivek because he's Hindu.
And I do think
But
religion
Dude,
gets
that's interesting.
this is where we may disagree. I think religion becomes less relevant over the
Like cut
decades.
yeah, yeah,
As the
coming
decades
future.
become centuries, I think religion's kind of running its course. I mean, there's always going to be like new like new paradigms, but I think dogma as we know it is slowly gonna
yeah, I disagree.
fade into something else.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I know you do. But I'm
completely
thinking like
disagree.
as the decades turn into centuries. Not
Yeah,
I'm not thinking about next election
still
cycle or even the one
disagree.
after.
I mean, we've been around for 4,000 years. There's always been religion, and it's always been
Ooh.
within government. So yeah,
But
I
hasn't been
completely disagree.
Christianity.
No, I'm not saying Christianity.
Yeah.
I'm saying religion will still be there and will be a factor in all politics, but it may not be Christianity. I'm just saying religion
But
will always be
America's only been here. Well, that still doesn't matter because all civil, yeah.
Yeah,
You
America's
make
like
a good point.
300 years, you
Yeah.
know, it's not enough to I mean, Roman Empire was like 1,000.
there.
America might last 1,000. It's just not gonna be like the next 700 or 600, let's say, are gonna be more like this and declining than going up, even if Trump wins or not. I mean, I think it's naive to believe he's
Did you
gonna
get a chance to watch
turn
my
it
video
around.
yesterday that I put up? You watched that at all?
No, man, I went to bed
No,
really
no, no, no.
early.
That's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Uh,
I only watch part of your videos too, so it's not a big
well,
deal.
I
I'm not
didn't watch
insulted.
any of
That's
yours.
offensive.
I didn't watch any
But,
of yours.
but,
I fell
but
asleep after the World Series.
there was something very interesting when I pulled up Chat GPT, and
You love that shit, huh?
well, no, I actually have a big complaint against it because I couldn't
Ah,
get it to replicate day after day the same results. So
oh yeah. Yeah.
I did it on the 26th. They gave me a certain set of results. I did it on the 27th, completely different. Then I did it on the 28th, completely different than both the other days. So it's not a great tool for searching for data.
Mm.
It may be helpful for like writing and such, but it's not a great tool at this
Right.
point for
Well, there's
data.
different plugins, so I don't know if you're using like any of the
Oh,
plugins
No,
because
I was
there's
just
like a
using the
data
free.
GPT.
Yeah, I was just using
Yeah,
the
no,
free
no.
version.
You have to pay, and there's different plugins, just like the App Store. There's like
Hmm.
hmm.
thousands of apps. There's thousands of ChatGPT plugins. Some are specifically for data, others are for like completely other things. So
How much
you
do
have
you pay a
to.
month?
I think I pay $20 a month for
Oh,
mine.
nice. And you
Yeah,
get like legit, like
I get
you feel like
everything.
it's pretty effective.
Yeah, and I only use the main interface, but I guess
Okay.
it's better than the free one. But
Okay.
I do use only the main. I've messed around with some plugins here and there, and I do think at some point, like it gives me enough agency to like maybe replace needing to hire an assistant with this, but it's not there yet. It's not there. It's not at that stage yet. But I think in a year or two, instead of hiring like a personal assistant, I'm just
Cool.
paying 100 a month for
Yeah.
ChatGPT and have like a virtual AI that's pretty damn good. Have you guys seen that podcast of this Charlie something? He's like a new YouTuber, philosopher guy,
Hmm.
and he had a podcast interview because now ChatGPT does a voice interface with you.
No.
He did an interview with the AI, and he's just interviewing the AI, and they're talking, and
What?
yeah, it's kind of cool. Like a little creepy because it's giving
No,
you
that's creepy.
Yeah, I've seen that.
yeah, it's giving you like the politically correct answer, but if you prompt it well
Oh,
enough and you
I
could
see.
catch it in like a kind of a lie, then it backtracks and says, "Well, it's a white lie, but you know," and
Oh
it
my gosh. Wow.
yeah,
So
but he said, "Well, I'm emulating human speech because humans do this," and then
Oh.
the humans like, "Yeah, I agree because when I'm in conversations too, I'm not all literal or rational. Also, in order to make the conversation smoother, I also put in my own effects for like white lies and stuff. You know, how, like when someone says, "How are you doing?"
Yeah.
Even if you're on a shitty day, you're like, "I'm doing
Right,
good."
right,
You know,
right.
like
But
that.
but you might not be. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Dude, that's
It's
that's
interesting, man.
fascinating.
Yeah, but it's getting better. The point is, it's getting better to where it's gonna be indistinguishable from human, and
Hmm.
yeah, it's
Hey, allow me to share my screen, Dan.
yeah, man. You're the host.
Hell no.
No, I can't find it. I think you must have it.
Mm, no, you're the host, man. What do you mean? You still
But
say
You're
host.
you're recording, right?
I'm
Oops.
recording, but I don't need to be host for that.
Okay,
It's just
so
Oh, maybe
underneath your
he
thing,
needs to be
share,
recording.
how do I share my background? What do I click on?
share underneath your video or underneath the
Oh, there it is.
When I was a boy in
Duh.
1927,
We didn't have any of these
Okay,
zigzaggy
this
buttons.
dang internet thing.
so this is what I made the video on. What's in green is when the American public, uh, the average American household.
Whoa, well, hold on. First of all, thank you very much for being prepared. This is very demure,
No,
very
it's very
professional.
nice. So,
You are very mindful.
so I asked ChatGPT to create a table of average yearly income minus average yearly expenses of the average American household and who was president at the time, right? So everything in green is
Chris,
you
stop
made
calling us
more.
average, man.
Well,
Uncle G told me that's not good.
you're not an average American
That's
household.
right.
Joey is, and I'm not either. The average American household is 2.6 children or people. Um,
2.6. God
yeah.
damn.
So, anyhow, you see in green, those are the presidents and years that the American public had more income than expenses, and the
Right.
red is when they had
Less
less income and
income as cost of
expenses.
living. Yeah.
So as you see, it's obviously going down, right? Even when it's positive, it's still going down. And in 2024, it's going to be the
Right.
least
Wait,
ever, at
wait,
least.
go up real quick. Let me just.
So this is saying the average yearly income and then the average living expense and what's that surplus if there was one. Got it. So
Mhm.
green
And
surplus,
where did you
red
get
is
this
you're
data
doing.
from? ChatGPT?
ChatGPT.
He made it up.
No,
I'm
ChatGPT.
joking. I'm joking.
And being that I got three different results on three different days, I actually went and looked at what information I could find because it's really hard to find this information. And I still couldn't find absolute authoritative information that confirmed this, but there was enough where I said, okay, yeah, this kind of confirms this particular year. Like I found some data on 2021 and 2 that were almost identical to what's here. So,
Interesting. Now there is one
Did you
red
post
year
this on
of
the Chris and Dan show?
yeah.
nice. I'll make sure I watch it. There is one year where Trump Trump's first year where there's a
Hmm.
negative
Yep. And
and
that could,
then
I would probably put
Trump
that on Barack Obama, probably, because it takes a while to implement your policies.
well yeah, sure. And then Barack has one good year. Um
Following Bush.
But what he's saying is it could have been because of Bush.
Right.
right.
Now, I'm not saying that I think Barack Obama might be um, allowed grace here because of the crisis in
Oh,
2008.
that's right. Yeah.
What do you
Um,
suspect this number will be in 25 for Trump?
It'll probably be negative, just like it was in
1 year. Okay, what
2017.
about 26?
That's a good question. We'll see.
It's never been this negative before. 5,000?
Nope. And it's also there's a it's a tendency, right? Even though Trump was able to do something, it still wasn't great compared to
Right.
previous years.
Right. It's previous years. There's a steady during the war
Decline.
years.
There's
Yeah,
a
after
steady
that
decline.
bubble. And that's interesting because there was a dot-com bubble,
Mm.
there was 9/11, but then there was a war which kind of stabilized that the US was directly involved in, which stimulated a lot of
So just
economic activity.
just FYI, my video is correlating this to the debt, which I really think it's the factor.
Yeah, you love that. I mean, obviously the debt's a factor.
No, I think it's absolutely responsible for this.
Oh, for sure. So do you think that and we'll watch the video, but thank you for this.
Hmm.
Do you think that there will be a paradigm shift as far as monetary policy? Because if that continues, that's not sustainable. Like even that losing 5,000 a month. And I
A
read a
year.
stat
It's year,
a
not month.
year, a year. I read a stat recently which was crazy. They said just to pay the interest on our
Wow.
debt, every American, not household, every person in the household, including kids, it's 3,500 a year for that person
Oh yeah,
just
it's,
to pay the
Dang,
I don't even
interest on the
I
debt.
I think it's even worse. Well, yeah,
No, it's
interest. Yeah,
not. It's 35. It just
that's probably
interest.
accurate.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've
man,
looked at the
just
world.
for interest
Yes.
like that. Yeah, to put that in
And
perspective,
climbing. So imagine whether you receive
that's
entitlements or
interest only,
not,
baby. Yeah.
you and your kids each owe 3,500 a year
Hmm.
just to service the debt.
Yeah, this is all borrowing from the future.
Right. And the Fed is directly responsible for this, which the Fed's only about 110 years old. So 1914, The Creature from Jekyll Island, really good book for anyone that wants a history of that. But what do you think?
Yeah.
What do you think is next though? Because the Fed's not going to be around forever, so they're going to have to get rid of the Fed
Well,
at
so
some point.
the real problem is our election, our system in which we elect people, because no politician, and I mentioned this in the video I created, no politician is going to be reelected if they said, "Hey, we're going to have to cut spending and increase taxes," which are called austerity measures. They'll never get
Yeah.
elected, or they will get unelected, right? If they're currently in
Right.
office proposing this, they're gone.
Right.
So this will not change. There is no changing this snowball. They're going to just continue to print. And what that's going to do is cause hyperinflation at some point.
Right.
When? Who knows?
And that's why every individual
That
needs to
nuts.
do what's best.
35 trillion. Yeah.
It's
Well, yeah.
almost
Well, exactly. That's what
36.
Uncle G says is, dude, you gotta just, you gotta take care of yourself, and he's not the only one that says this. But yeah, it's like, you gotta take care of your own because, I mean, the government can't take care of their own. How are they going to take care of you?
Well,
They're not. I mean, look at that. Almost 36 trillion.
so I'm really of a firm.
Yeah, look, it
So,
says debt per citizen,
yep,
106,000 per citizen.
yep.
That's insane. Debt per taxpayer, 271,000. I didn't know it broke it. I've heard of the US debt, but I haven't looked at all these besides just the far left one. But dude, that's nuts.
So, and what's even worse is there's hidden debt too. That's not even all of it.
I mean, at least our GDP is still going up and not red. Because if
Hmm.
that was red, there's no escape from this, right?
Well, there is
Other
no
than
escape. There is no escape because of what the GDP to debt ratio is. It's 122%. The only other time this happened in America was during World War II. But it was easy to turn off the spigot because that it was
right,
125%. They just stopped spending on the war.
right. Total debt to GDP ratio now
I
is
was just looking at that.
135%.
Yeah. Dang.
135%. So I
But you
mean,
can't
you
turn that
just
off. You can't turn that spigot off, right? For what's causing that. You either have to increase
um
GDP because they can't stop spending.
U.S. federal spending. This is one of the things that Elon, the main reason I voted for
Hmm.
Trump was Elon's economic policy, because it's not going to be Trump doing that. It's going to be Elon who's going
Hmm.
to be in charge of doing what Javier Milei did. And what Javier Milei did, the unintended short-term side effect is very high unemployment.
Yep.
Because what you do is you cut off,
Hmm.
okay, you stop spending if at the federal level, what does that do? Like almost half of this country works for government in some capacity.
Yep.
So now you've
And it,
got half of the
Mm.
people.
well, hey, wait. I just want to add real one quick bit of color there, Dan.
Can you take this
So,
fear porn off? This is making me anxious.
so, so if,
All these numbers are going up.
Yeah,
so, so if Elon does what he did at Twitter and immediately fires 80% of the people and does that with the government, go
right.
ahead.
But unlike Argentina, this is probably the best time to do it. We are at record low unemployment. So we could absorb some of those government workers into
In the
private
private.
industry. I don't
Yep.
know how many. I personally would not consider hiring a government worker in any of my companies, but there's probably
Right.
enough bureaucratic private companies to where there's roles for some of those people, unlike in Argentina. So we would do better than Argentina is doing, and Argentina is not doing great right now, but long term, they're on a better path towards sustainability, but they have massive unemployment right now.
So I've watched a number over the years of videos where they talk about federal employees and the actual work they accomplish.
They don't actually work.
Yeah, exactly. So you're
They don't
looking at,
actually-
if I recall correctly, they believe it only takes one employee to cover the five employees' work, right?
Probably about right.
So it really would make no difference if you fired 80% and just paid them for 2 more years, say, to find a job. Just say, you'll get your salary for 2 years.
How many of those do you think are employable?
Well, 20%, according to the stat I've heard over and over.
That were like Google or Apple
Yeah,
or
anywhere,
Uber.
20% are actually good workers,
Okay.
and 80% are just doing enough not to get fired, which they
Now,
don't
from
really
those
fired
80, though,
people.
because the incentives are in their favor to not do work and the philosophy, the algorithm for human passive functioning is maximize pleasure, minimize pain. So,
Hmm.
like, as long as you follow that algorithm, but if the incentives are turned to where no, you have to do a little more work, I think from those 80%, maybe half of them would be willing to. So really, then you're left with like
Yeah.
40% of that, like
But
unemployed.
what I'm saying is you change nothing if, and I think Elon did this at Twitter as well, but you change nothing in terms of expenses for the government, and you do not change production either. If you say to those government employees that you fire, we're going to pay you for 2 years at your current rate, right? Because you don't
Right,
lose any production because you still have that one person doing the work of five,
right.
and you've moved them away from the government, given them 2 years to go find a job in the private sector. So, which is plenty of time,
You think
right?
entrepreneurship is the answer to this? Like now that AI is going to
Yes.
empower more
Yes.
entrepreneurs to do more. I mean, it's not like they're not going to hire anyone ever, but if you can attract more business with these tools, you're going to eventually want to hire some people too.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Or how many of these people are capable of starting their own business from the unemployed?
well, a
This
few.
goes back to our other podcast. Yeah, how like AI is going to create new industries for people to like do stuff in.
Yeah.
Or
Or new
well, you guys were
opportunities.
arguing AGI. I was just arguing AI.
Yeah, we can't
But
argue
yeah, I mean,
AGI because AGI is like theoretical right now, but like the
yeah,
tools that we already have, like
yeah,
I'm paying $20 of real money a month. If you showed me, hey, if you paid 100, you can do this, this, and that, I would do that.
right. Well, dude, or yeah, could you pay 1,000 to get the work of 10 workers or whatever,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
again, you'll that's I think AI, just like the internet and phones and all of that stuff, pagers for a while. Remember pagers?
yeah.
Dial-up internet. Like as technology and just industries expand, in my opinion, it opens up new industries and new jobs for people. So I think the world for thousands of years has always adapted. And I think for 1,000 more years, the world will continue to adapt like it has always done. So
We have
I'm
to, or
sure I'm
else
sure they thought about that with the
what's the
tractor.
alternative? What's the
I mean,
alternative to not
right,
adapting? Like,
Well,
exactly.
do we have any historical precedents of not adapting ever? I don't think we do.
Right,
well,
right.
so I'm sure
Or
this
like
is,
of a whole like civilization becoming extinct or not, no reason to live or to work or to, yeah, that hasn't happened.
No,
No.
no.
Some
well,
people like what I guess what I'm saying is some people with it, like if you were a Expedia or not Expedia, a travel agent, and you were, and you didn't want to adapt, you probably did really, really well. And then when Expedia and the internet came, you've been slowly, and I'm a little bit, thinking of that. Is that potentially what's happening with real estate, becoming a
Agency work.
realtor?
Yeah, I mean, look
You
at
know,
AI. They're even using the application in their name, agency work. I mean, you're a
yeah,
real estate agent. That's a lot of a
yes.
lot of the automatic things of what you do can be done better with the AI, but then the
That's my
intangibles is what you
argument.
bring.
Yeah, that's my argument because still the same number of transactions are going through realtors, even with
Yeah,
technology.
right.
With the travel agent, again, this is me debating or not, or arguing my side. But I also want to do a good job at, I don't want to be a knucklehead and stay and becoming a travel agent when nobody's doing. The difference is people were booking stuff online instead of going through travel agencies.
Yeah.
People are still going through realtors today. Technology is just making it so much more easier for both the realtor and the consumer. Actually, it's so much more good. So that the transactions haven't gone away yet. So that's why I'm like, well, we're still the facilitator, just like attorneys are the facilitator for lawsuits and different
Yeah.
disputes and stuff. Anyways,
So the one thing I don't think you guys are considering in terms of governmental layoffs, these people are not going to go program unless they have a programming background for AI. They're not going to get jobs, especially if they're older and they cannot be retrained.
But you don't
If
need to
you're
program anymore. They're
okay, but
AI is
if
programming now.
so you guys are
true.
saying AI will encompass, say,
AI is making it.
40 million layoffs, right?
Remember in the late 90s to make a website, it was like 40 grand. It's gotten to the point now
True.
it's almost
Actually,
free and it's anyone
exactly.
can do it. It may not look the best, but if you put
Right.
time into it for like
Well, I
100 bucks,
guarantee you
you
the
can make a
average
nice
free
one.
website today looks 100 times better than the 90s
There you
that
go.
you
Same
paid
thing
40
with
grand.
developing and
Yeah.
Mhm.
apps.
Yeah.
So what
You're
you're
it's
saying is these laid off employees are going to go make websites.
No, I said a
No, no,
small
no, no, no.
percentage of them are
Yeah, no.
possible. A small percentage of those layoffs may become entrepreneurs. The
Okay,
majority won't.
sure.
A small percentage will, but as these tools become more ubiquitous, it will incentivize more of
Ooh.
them to want to do it, right?
Sure.
And
I
some of them will succeed.
where I think, at least in my opinion, reality of this would be you're going to have what, how many would you expect to be laid off? If 50% of employees are
Yeah,
employed by
let's
the
say half.
government,
Yeah, let's say half.
then that's about what, how many people are working in the United States? 80 million. So let's say that's 40 million people are unemployed. There's just no job market for those people. Over
Well,
two
no, I wouldn't.
years,
I wouldn't say that. I don't think it.
Well,
I
unemployment's
don't
at
think
3%.
technology has never
no, no,
had
no. What
a
I'm
like a
saying
hard
is, I
cut.
don't think 40 million people will find employment. That's why I'm saying you've got to pay them probably for 2 years to find a job, and I still don't think all of them
Oh,
will
for
find a
sure they're
job.
gonna have some kind of safety net if they do
But Chris,
something
I
like
don't
that.
think it's going to play out the way that like 40 million people are just going to be cut, or because as
But that's
c-
how it
com
happened at Twitter, and
How
Elon's
it
going to
happened
be
in
well,
responsible for
that's
Argentina.
a
this.
completely
It's how it
different
happened in
story.
Argentina too. Like
That's a
they did
completely
this.
different story. Because companies are smart. When you hire people, it's a bitch. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So it's like
Sure.
if let's say, I mean, smart companies, good companies are going to say, okay, we don't have this role. I have two things to say. So this is one. We don't have this role for this, but actually we could use you to do X, Y, and Z, in somewhere else. I don't think companies are just going to fully like let them go. Some will. So and there is going to be potentially portions, but when the internet came, 100 million people didn't get unemployed. When oh, my camera's freaking out.
Well, in Argentina, the Malay let it let. I mean, it was like half of the
There we go.
government workers were just unemployed. I think they did a some kind of safety net, but not. They can't afford it like the United States can, and now they have soaring
Oh,
unemployment.
I would fully anticipate Elon does the same thing he does at Twitter and gives them a package. I don't know what,
Yeah, he gave them a
like two
really good
years.
package, which is not bad. And then that 2 years, you can go learn a new
But that
skill.
has nothing to do with technology. That has everything to do with, incompetence and somebody that doesn't, he actually, I don't think he fired him. He just says, hey, this is what it's going to be. You're welcome to walk out. And then 70% or whatever just walked out. And it turns out Twitter was just fine without him.
Nah, he
That's
hacked the
nuts.
but he hacked before he did that offer. He hacked like the
Oh,
bottom 30% just
which
based
is
off of
probably
metrics.
smart. Yeah,
And then he did that for the rest.
that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, which
But
is
that
how
has
it
nothing to
should
do
be.
with technology being so sophisticated that he didn't need them. It was
Right.
just that they were,
Right.
you should fire the bottom 30% when you have a large company,
Right.
especially when it's heavy. I
Yep.
think that they,
But the
um,
government's different because the government workers almost like a disguised entitlement. Like you're not
so
actually being
true.
productive to society. You matter of fact may be making it worse.
You're saying like the DMV. Yeah.
Yeah, or
Like
yeah,
employee,
exactly.
which is what you're saying.
You're not
You're in
producing
the way.
anything. Yeah, you're not
Yeah, so
producing
you should be
value.
fired. Yeah, you
But
should be.
that's a disguised entitlement, and it's just
Yeah.
under the category of Fed spending.
Yeah, but I think people should, I think some people will rise and say, okay, I've had it good for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Now I need to actually try. So some will and
I
some
hope so.
some won't.
Yeah.
But I think, as we advance in the future, I mean, nobody should expect to make a career out of working at McDonald's in the fast food store serving food. You can't make that, it's minimum wage
Unless you
from
work in California.
true. Well, yeah, which I disagree with, but you're making a joke out of it, which is hilarious. But you shouldn't. So
Yes.
it's like, yeah, we should as a civilization should be trying to get smarter and more
Well,
efficient and da da da. If you're just gonna stay and working at McDonald's for 40 years as a server, now obviously like corporate, working up in
just
middle management,
real quick point to what you're saying there, Joey. When I was a child, which I assume is the same, well, probably not for you, but when I was a child, every fast food joint was
teenagers, yeah.
all children, and one adult.
In and
That
out's
was
Right.
still
it.
like that.
And
In
I
and
think
out's
that
kind of like that.
that's how it should be. It should be minimum wage to, hey, get out in the environment was you're in high school, figure out how this whole work
Yeah.
thing and dealing with difficult people. There's a lot of life lessons
And
to work at
nobody
fast
wants
food.
to, and fast food, as dire of a picture as that is way more efficient than government workers who are effectively doing less, getting paid more, getting
True.
government entitlements
Yeah,
like
isn't that
benefits,
funny?
really
Interesting.
good benefits. My healthcare for just me and my wife is like $2,000 a month,
And isn't that stupid?
and we got like a 70% of a deductible. Like, so you still get bills of like 3 grand when you go do like a scan or something. So a government worker don't pay any of that. They have really good benefits,
Hmm.
right? And so that's all that money, like that's being paid for by that clock that Chris put up. I mean, it's all in there. And so if you cut those, you cut all that too. So it's not just making enough to support their income, it's making enough for the healthcare, which is rising astronomically as well. The cost of living, the affordability of things. Like you're gonna get a world or a country of haves and have-nots, which is gonna cause massive social unrest. Like, forget all this fear porn about who wins. It's the real danger is 20 years from now when 10% of people are like property owners and 90% are renting.
That's
And
we're, the percentage today, it's probably shocking what it is today. It's probably like 40 or 50% of people own all the assets, it might be
yeah,
30%,
yeah.
Um, yeah, I think we, for some reason, yeah, there's just, you know, a lot of people think that, yeah, you should be able to, it's definitely a leftist, ideology, which is you should be able to work at Burger King and McDonald's and buy a house. And it's like maybe 35, 40 years ago, there was two people that could do that, you know, but it's just like, yeah, you should not be able to do that when you're working at McDonald's. I don't know why that people have this expectation that that's a right. Now, would it be nice that you could only work at McDonald's and do that? Yeah. Now, it's fine to have to get on your feet, and but you should be able to try to strive. This is the American dream. You have the choice to buy a house and to further yourself, and you have a choice to not and to be homeless and to work at McDonald's and have to rent the rest of your life.
Well,
There are people that are in between that, but I want to talk about the 95%, which is there's people that choose and the people that don't choose. And you're going to have to, that's the choice. I mean, going back to religion, the choice, there's going to be people that choose and
Free
people that
will.
don't. This is free will, and I want the choice of what I want to choose. I mean, don't you? Versus, hey, you have to work here. Like in other countries, there's only 1% that are financially wealthy, and you don't even have a choice to like be a business owner and to, to further your family's future. You have to know a politician. I mean, that would be insane to have to be in a country like that, So I'm grateful for where we live. I don't think it's necessarily perfect, but that I can choose to, I haven't made it yet, but I know I will, and I'm glad that I'm in a place where
It's
I'm
still the greatest country in the world, the
exactly.
least regulations, although other countries
That's
are
not true.
catching up.
That part's not true, Dan.
Business-wise, there are other
That's
countries
not
are
true.
catching up.
There's a ranking list, and we're like 15th on it.
Okay,
Really?
there's
Yeah.
probably there's probably
I
a
might
number
challenge the
one.
ranking.
Well, there's probably several ratios you can make that makes it number one, like total addressable market compare and ratio over regulatory burden. I'm sure there's number one on a lot of that. Point is, it's one of the best places, but it's other countries are catching up,
Hmm.
which Sovereign Individual, this book I have here,
Get
talks
it,
all
buddy?
about it. The nation state's no longer about protecting us, right? It's matter of fact, it's starting to turn against us in many ways when it starts taxing the producers and redistributing it to the non-producers because of the prevailing
Right.
victim mentality that
Yeah.
exists.
Well, it's just it's un-American. That's not the
Right.
I mean, you go through New York. In New York, there's a Statue of Liberty. I mean, that's the opposite of that, where you can have the American dream and choose. Why wouldn't people want that? Just so you can stay at home and smoke weed. I just don't get that. So what is this, Chris? I'm assuming you're the king of sharing. Now that you know how to do it,
Yeah, now that Chris knows how
bam.
to do it, the show
Well,
just leveled up.
so
Like
index of economic freedom was what you were just discussing. So we're not even in the top. What is that? 7?
index
Uh,
of economic, okay, I got you. So like the ratio,
Where's
some
the
ratio
countries?
between
over here.
them ratio
Oh, I have to. I'm
between.
sorry. I have it zoomed out. Okay, there it is. Sorry.
Well, but
Interesting.
why don't you see startups in those countries then?
Japan, there's no, I don't.
Like
Yeah,
why,
I
how
think
come
that
you
that's
don't see
bullshit.
Uber?
No, that's economic freedom, right?
Right, but where's the Facebook? Like how come all the big companies we know are in US or well now
Right.
Nvidia,
But
which is a
so
US subsidiary,
what
but
you're describing is different than what you stated, right? There's a difference between having these companies here established in America versus economic freedom. So economic freedom is regulation. These
right,
companies are
but
big enough to
those
overcome
companies
regulation.
but those companies I mentioned were all founded in the US. They didn't
Sure,
get found in
sure.
Finland and then move here.
Yep, that still is a different perspective, right? Because you want to be in the United States for the money, right? It
Right,
still is more
right.
regulated than these countries, is what this is indicating.
I see. And that's as of 2024. I mean, then it's even worse than I thought for it probably proves my point even more.
I don't even see United States on here yet
Yeah.
I mean, in that case, what's the point of living here really or paying high taxes? Like
because the money's here. Here was here, but it is mostly free in terms of economic freedom.
flawed democracy. That's an understatement. Uh,
But in terms of economic freedom, it's still much better off than most of the. I mean, there's only a few in green.
I see. Well, point is, we're having less of reasons to want to continue to stay Americans. I know you guys are like patriotic.
Somehow the money's here, but maybe because we have the most debt.
Well, we still
Yeah,
have the world
got
currency,
it.
but that's gonna at some point not be the
Hmm.
case. The problem is
Hmm.
China's lost a lot of ground on that
No, no,
recently.
you mean
So
China.
yeah, that's right. BRICS is a real threat if they can get their act together. And
Hmm.
what BRICS is doing is investing in a lot of developing nations like Mexico to where like
Hmm.
Mexico has a lot of like potential and like there's other
Hmm.
countries like Mexico, like Vietnam's another one. So BRICS is becoming allies to those countries instead of the US.
Yeah, but those countries are not economically free. They're not free in most regards, right? They're
BRICS,
just they're just
Brazil, Russia, India, China, South
yeah,
Africa.
they're not free. But what they are is a counterbalance to the United States.
Yeah. So US is still going to be global currency in my lifetime. But really it's after that that's questionable. And then it's questionable as to people's motivations to continue to stay here and pay because taxes are just going to keep going up. I mean, if the wealth disparity continues,
Well,
taxes go up on the producers.
so I don't necessarily think that's true, honestly. The taxes will go up. I just think inflation will increase, which is ultimately a tax as well.
If
Right.
what you're saying is
Because when assets
possible,
go up, you pay higher taxes, or the dollar
Well, It's,
amount goes up. Yeah.
it's just not that. It's a matter of when you print more money, you can then take that money and use it as a government, right, to pay off your dues, your debts. Um, and while that's not a direct taxation on people, the resulting inflation is because that's how you devalue the currency and your ability to buy things.
Yeah, but when inflation goes up,
Yeah, which is
debt
also
goes up. Yeah,
so
national
when it
debt goes up.
no, actually when inflation goes up, it makes the debt less. And that's why it's also this is the maneuver the government will pull. They'll print like mad because it will increase inflation, which reduces your purchasing power, which what effectively means is your dollar is worth less. So they can have more dollars to pay their debt, right? Opposed
Right.
to going the
Because
other
just like when
direction.
inflation goes up, that's why I always use this example. If you had $100,000 in the bank in 2019, that even just to 2022, that's really worth like 80,000 in cash,
Oh,
right?
I think even less than that.
Because they went down. So 35 trillion in 2019 is really worth far less because inflation went up. Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. Yep, I follow. Yeah, but
It
so I got it. Okay, so you make the inflation go up and then you should lower the gosh dang rates because doesn't lowering the rates make the debt cheaper?
was so they did this in the 70s, and it was funny how and they're going to do this again. So it
Because rates
the
we're back up to 7% today.
the rates for the
Gosh.
individual for the general populace will go
Mm,
up, but for the government they'll go down. They're going to do that again.
interesting.
Yeah.
But it's not now.
Well, because they need inflation, right? They just don't need the
Just
inflation on
because
their
of
end.
debt is what you're saying?
Yep.
Besides debt, why do they need inflation?
That's the
Besides
whole,
making the debt cheaper.
that's the
that's
whole
the only,
reason.
yeah.
Mm.
That's the only reason. Otherwise, so it's that or you could go with austerity measures, which again, like we explained at the beginning, that's just not going to happen.
But then this is a case for equities, right? Real estate stocks.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, so I firmly, because I've listened to you guys talk about this and I didn't find a spot to say this, but I firmly believe we're the last generation that will
Hmm.
be able to buy a house with ease.
Yeah. I think Gen Zs are already demonstrating
Yeah.
that,
I think
especially with Gen Zs wanting to be influencers instead of having
if
Yeah.
jobs.
if you're if you're 30 or 40 and you have children, if you want your children to have a house, you need to buy it for them because
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
won't most likely will not be able to get it themselves.
My employee, who works for us, Chris, you know her. I won't mention her name here, but her mom, owns a restaurant,
Hmm.
and my employee needed to buy a house, and she's, kind of priced out. I mean, she actually has savings. She grew up relatively wealthy because parents are prosperous. But she didn't want to
Oh,
she didn't want
cool.
to sell her Bitcoin to do it, right? So, what she ended up doing was her mom paid her down payment, and then it's a
Good.
loan back to her mom through
Good.
the restaurant business over time. So, but that's and she's not white,
Right.
but that's would be considered like white
Yeah, helping.
privilege, right? Like
Right.
under the
Right.
umbrella of just being privileged.
Right.
And people are gonna be resentful of that, man. I mean, it's
Well,
not
I see
fair.
as a realtor, I see stuff like that all the
You see?
time.
Yeah,
In
you of
our
all
in a,
people would know that.
I mean, mo most cases, somebody if you're under 40 or 40 and under, some sort of family's helping out.
Right.
Um, and it's the rare, and sometimes it's over that. I
Hmm.
have clients that are over that, and I mean, you look at it, especially if you come in from another state. I mean, I had a client that they were in their 60s and they had a parent, um, that's a whole nother story because that person had a really good job. who you would, if I said the profession, I'm not going to, but you're like, oh, well, yeah, it's like, oh, wow. But it's just, yeah, coming from another state or just, rates are super high. I mean, it's really, really difficult to make the numbers work, even if you are middle class right now,
Right. Right.
because rents are 3,000, but to own it, it's 5,800 right now.
Right
Now it
now.
used to be rents are at 3,000 and your payment's like 35.
And
That's
I think
you
if
can
home
you can
prices keep
bridge
going
that.
up, it's not going to make sense to own an investment property, single family, because there's going to be so much competition in the multifamily dwellings that everyone's going to choose. It'll just be seen as a luxury expenditure as well. Like I want to rent to not
Yeah,
live
but
in a
families
multifamily.
tend to like, I mean, so I think you could be right, but from what I see, it's two different types of customers. One that wants a condo, luxury high rise, or big ass pool, the whole Grant Cardone thing. That's a customer. And then there's a customer for a single family home. It could be a family,
Mm.
could be I want one level, I want less people, I want it quiet, I want more space. I think it's a little bit two different customers. They could start to intertwine as it just becomes so unaffordable. But dude, the Grant Cardone types of apartment buildings that you're speaking of, like the Irvine Spectrum stuff,
Yeah,
that stuff's not cheap. I mean,
it's
it's
not
like
cheap.
four
Yeah,
grand for a two bedroom,
yeah,
I mean, or you could pay 45 and get a single family home,
yeah,
Well,
so,
and that
but,
gets back to what I was saying about if you want your children to have a house, right?
oh,
Yeah,
oh,
you need to buy it for
yeah,
them. You're going to take the hit
yeah,
because you're not going to probably get the returns that you used to be able to
right.
get on a rental property. But if you want
right.
your children to own a
Mm,
home,
I disagree with that.
I don't because I've been looking at this for like 6 months now as far as buying a house. And like even Dan was recently
Well, no, no, no.
purchased
What
a
you're saying,
house.
there's two different things. One's cash flow, and then there's,
Yeah, cash
the
flow. Okay, you're
overall,
right.
okay,
You're right. My apologies. You're not going to be able to
because,
cash flow it right now like you used to be able
right,
to. The purchase prices are too high. The interest rates are too high. It's almost impossible.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I
The
won't be
cash
cash
So
flow, which
flowing
is
mine.
after all your expenses, if
correct,
there is
correct.
anything
You're
left
right. Thank you
over.
for the correction. I
And
don't like to
mine
mislead
will be an
people, but
Airbnb. I close in
But
2
you
weeks.
buy it for 500 now, in 5 years it's worth 650,
exactly,
700.
exactly.
So
Or 20 years,
it's
it's a
gonna be,
million.
exactly, it's gonna be worth it. It's just that
It's
Well,
if you're
essentially a
looking to
forced
make
savings.
money per month,
it it
exactly.
it
It's
Yeah.
a
may
forced
not
savings.
it may not keep rate, and it might, but it may not maintain the rate of inflation increase. But maybe it will. Regardless, if you want your
It
kids to
always
have
has
it always has, yes, absolutely, but it may not.
and
I'm just
done
saying it may
more.
not, depending on what happens in the future. But if you want your children to have a house, there's just no way they're going to be able to buy a house, even at the
Well, I don't
current
know what would
prices.
make it. I think what I see, Chris, is because of inflation, they're printing the money, more people are renting. It's making the overall value of the asset worth much more than it ever has been.
That's the
So
problem, though, making it
I don't know what it would.
viable. It's
Yeah,
not
it's a vicious
attainable.
cycle. So it's good for those who keep doing it and buying, but for the
Correct.
ones that
Exactly.
are like the new
The
generation,
starting out, they just can't
yeah,
do it. I mean,
yeah,
it gets
They
back to
can't,
right. That's why I'm saying it has to
but
be the
people are still
parents.
buying it.
Yeah,
right.
older people,
But you
not
haven't
younger
answered what
people.
would make it go reverse because I haven't heard that argument.
Probably more government policy, like regulations making it easier for
Okay.
lenders to do liar loans, essentially.
Okay.
I mean, like going back to the subprime bubble, like I think
Okay.
that comes back at some point.
Well, in
To
terms of
help.
Yeah,
reverse is it gets back again to that chart I showed a little while ago. It's we're not keeping pace with the inflation, the individual, right? As far as
Of
having an
the
asset,
individual for sure.
right? Uh, as far as an asset now, yes, sure. If you can get it, if you can acquire it, yes.
but supply
Like,
and demand also has a lot to do with it. Right
sure,
now, the regulations, especially
Yes,
in states
that's
like
right.
California, it's almost impossible to build new. And so
Yes, that's
you're
right.
competing against just the same old homes. Matter of fact,
Yeah,
you're gonna overpay for this piece of shit, and then you gotta tear
right,
it all down and build it
right,
how you want. Like that's
right.
completely unaffordable. for the
Yes.
majority of people.
But to
But that's
directly answer,
making the asset worth more.
it
That's
is.
another reason.
But to
But go
directly
ahead,
answer
Chris.
your question, I haven't looked into this, but if we do actually ever hit hyperinflation, and there's
Well, I think we're
examples of
there.
this,
Yeah.
no, we're not at hyperinflation,
Nah,
but
not
if
yet.
we do hit it, what happens with assets? Do they keep ahead of that inflation? I don't know. I haven't looked into that. Like
Well, this
when you
is where not
take
all
the Y
equities.
mark, you take Mexico, they went through hyperinflation. Y mark Germany twice in like 20 years went through hyperinflation, and many other countries have. Zimbabwe, they have $1 trillion bills, right? So, um, I haven't looked,
Hmm.
do assets maintain pace with hyperinflation? I don't know.
Well,
I'd
they
have to look
do,
into
but
that.
not all equities are created equal, right?
Yeah.
And this is where you have the discounted cash flow formulas
Yeah.
that are used to analyze equities. But I mean, a house is an equity, right? And so
It's an
there's like
asset.
10, it's an asset. There's 10 criteria for companies like when you're analyzing equities, and I don't know which one of these would
Right.
apply for real estate, but it's definitely in the gross margin, high switching cost, customer concentration. Like the demand is a big one. Organic demand versus marketing spend, which is again used for equities, but if you apply it to real estate, I mean, if you're flooding the markets with cheaper apartments, and I know the ones out right now are expensive, but maybe the next level is cheap ass ones that are nice. Because
So
tech is a
Mm.
deflationary force, right?
But I don't think that as of right now, it's so expensive to build. No,
Yeah,
builders only do it to make a return. This is why I love
that's the part.
capitalism.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like who, if that, I mean, people have the luxury to do that. If you want to build a nice luxury high rise and then make it $100 a month in rent, go ahead.
right.
Nobody's stopping that. I mean, look, there's still government subsidized housing. That's
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
so nobody's stopping that, but just no builder is going to go through 5 years of
But maybe
hell.
the high house, maybe a lot having to do with the high housing costs are government regulations, and if those are reduced, let's say by a Republican party,
But you still got labor, materials, lumber, gas.
yeah,
I mean, building up, it's a big undertaking,
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, if it goes down a little bit, but I don't think say it takes you $500,000 to build a single family home on average.
right.
You
If you
reduce
drive
it
right
by
now,
10% or 20%. Okay, now it's 400. It's still
well, here's
is
a,
the actual rent gonna go down, significantly enough? I don't
I don't
know.
know. It's my fear though,
Unless you
because
flood supply.
if you go to like the newer parts of Phoenix, so on the west side of Phoenix, it looks like Santa
Okay.
Margarita there, by the way.
Oh,
Like you
cool.
would not be able to tell the difference when
That's
you're there. The
awesome.
houses look the same,
Yeah, right, right.
and they're all new build. They look like houses. But you know what's interesting? It says now leasing. So they're building these homes
Ooh.
to lease.
Or maybe could they not sell them?
No, they're all leasing. And this is
Oh,
something
oh,
that's
so they're not
happening.
they're purposefully not selling them. The
They're
whole
building
neighborhood
them
is
to
leased.
lease. Yes,
Interesting.
which is my fear as a
brought
real
to you
estate
by
investor.
BlackRock.
Exactly.
Well,
Exactly.
there's a reason why these mofos are doing it. I think
So
that
if you're a
proves my
consumer,
point more right.
if you're a government
Why the
worker
hell
that
would
just
BlackRock do that?
because they want to control the rents, but a normal
Well,
person like
well,
you and
no,
I can't
because they
compete with them.
know they're hedging that's going to make a significant better return in the far future. That's
Right.
why.
They're
It,
discounted
it,
cash
it is
flows.
the
Yeah.
safest, or it's the most safest and the highest return over long term. These guys are freaking effing smart.
Right,
They're
but
not
if
Well,
you're
doing
a
it just to be
homeowner,
nice.
let's say you're a homeowner across the street from that development, same kind of home for argument's sake, right? And BlackRock just built 300 of these, same
Right.
model. And you own one, BlackRock owns 300. The Walmart effect could happen where they price out mom and pops, get you out of
so
there, and then they raise
I
prices
don't
later.
think so.
It's
the re
possible.
Well, okay, that could happen, but see, when you develop, the only difference is that you don't build and release all 300 at the exact same time.
For sure. For sure.
You build like 3% of the time, so you're only
But
releasing.
if you're selling though,
But you're not going to do that with leasing. If you flood the market, any builder knows this. If you flood it, Irvine Company does this. That's why
Yeah.
they build these huge 100 and 1,000 unit in phases, is because they slowly build. It doesn't make sense building wise. It would actually make more sense building the whole thing at the same time.
sure.
But they don't want to screw themselves in the foot. When you have 100 open at the same time, it's going to bring
Oversupply.
down. Exactly.
Yes.
So you got to
So-
control it.
I don't necessarily agree, and here's why.
Well, every builder does.
No, I
in
understand
America.
So let me give you an argument why that may not be the case.
Okay.
What if they're anticipating hyperinflation? It's much, much cheaper to build now.
Of course. Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
much
but you
cheaper.
still don't want
build
to have
all the-
100 vacancies.
You do if you think hyperinflation's around the corner.
Well,
Because it's
BlackRock and
so
everybody in the
much-
world does not agree with that.
How do you know? Maybe that's why they're doing it.
Because
You're speaking
builders
for
have always
BlackRock.
done it like this.
Well, then why are they doing it? But why are they doing it differently now?
They're not.
Dan just said they built hundreds.
That's
of
They're
them.
building. They're building.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is they don't release anybody, like they don't housing's different than Walmart. You want all your product on the shelf. So
No, I
people,
don't. I'm not
housing is
disagreeing with you.
completely different.
I'm not
They're not going to
disagreeing.
release
So,
all of it
Joey,
because they know that it's going
You
to
think
kill.
I'm disagreeing? I'm not. I'm not disagreeing. What I'm saying is things are changing, right? For example,
No, the only thing
What-
that's changing is that they are either
So-
buying or developing homes and then immediately renting them. That's the
so
only thing that's changing.
why are they
right?
doing that now?
They've actually
So-
been doing that for the last 10 years.
Okay, fine. Why are they
Affordability
doing?
is
Why
why
are
they're
they
doing
doing that over the last 10 years?
Affordability.
Well,
No, see, I disagree.
it's the
because-
same. No, it's what I said before. It's why not only BlackRock, but a lot of huge venture private
Are you-
equity companies, excuse me, PEs are doing this is because it's the safest and the highest return over
Why?
the long term.
Why? So I'm not disagreeing with you.
Because when
Joey.
they run their
Joey,
reports,
hang on, just stop.
the
Just stop for a
favors are
second.
in real estate,
Joey,
which
just
is
stop
why
for-
all of us buy
Joey,
real estate.
Joy, settle down. So listen, it's always been 60% equities, 40% bonds. That's always been the investment. That's what everyone does, right? That's
No,
what your advice.
That's
Yes,
not,
it is.
that's not what
your
BlackRock's doing.
Okay, I'm getting there. So 60-40 has always been what you've advised to invest, right? And that's what they've done for 70 years. Okay. Why is that now changing? And I'm not disagreeing with you over the last 10 years.
Because the returns on bonds are not.
Well, private equity does not do
because
that.
of inflation, because of return, because there's all kinds of new developments in
But private equity, maybe a financial advisor does it that way, but PE does not do it that way. That's far too conservative. Nobody would ever do that
Yeah,
in private equity.
PE doesn't do that, but the point is the bonds. It's not exciting anymore to do that, or not. It's not even.
no, it's not
It doesn't
beating
even
But you
inflation.
to be
keep up
in
with inflation.
40% in
inflation.
bonds, you're never get ahead. I would
Yeah,
never.
that's the old school.
I would never
um,
ever. But
my
again, I'm not a
concern-
financial advisor.
But my concern as a private investor in real estate is I don't want to buy a house across the
Dan
street
has a
from
point.
I don't want to buy my house across the street from a BlackRock community. Like
I do.
if they want to, they can just drown me out. They can lower rents until all the private owners around sell to them or sell to someone else. And that's it. Like they're okay with a family living there, owner occupied. But if they are another rental group there, that's competition. And they can drown you out just purchasing power, pricing power.
They'll never do that.
They can, is my point. I don't know if
Sure.
they will or won't.
Sure,
But
they
they
can,
can.
but I would want to buy a older house. This is a fair argument, what you're saying, Dad. I personally would, because again, their cost of building, getting the permits is super high. Grant Cardone, when he builds, he's not charging $200 a month for rent. He's pushing it to the mother effing limit.
They're doing
And so is
luxury now.
BlackRock and all of this. They're pushing it. They're not
80% of their
incentivized.
capital at BlackRock's invested in bonds. So this is where you guys just I think
No,
you guys
that's not true.
Well, that's what
that is
AI
not
is
true.
saying. How do you
No.
know that's not true? Look it
Because
up.
I've been on their
Look.
website and I know for a fact.
Well,
Go
The
to
fund
their
has at
website.
least 80% of its assets high yield investments, primarily non-investment grade bonds with maturities of 10 years or less.
80%. That's what
BlackRock
this is
US.
saying.
That's it.
U.S. government bond portfolio.
So
Go to
this is a
BlackRock.
bond. This is a bond, right? So what I'm telling you is this.
No, it's
So
not true. Yeah,
But
because
that's
I've
BlackRock's
been on.
U.S. government bond portfolio, though. And
Correct.
only 80% of that portfolio is in bonds.
Correct. Yes.
okay, well, let's try something else.
Here, let me go to
I mean, we're going to meet a
funds.
PE company next week. We can ask them what the fuck they do. I don't think they're buying bonds.
Mutual
So
funds.
that's,
I should.
but that's different. That's different than
Okay,
BlackRock.
sure. Well,
So
BlackRock's what? Considered PE or something else? Or
PE.
P?
is it?
I don't
From
know.
what I know, it is. I wouldn't bet on it, but from what I know, it is. Or maybe
Well,
it's Blackstone. Hold on.
let,
Blackstone is who.
let me take a different approach. So banks, right? What do they look to do? If money's created through banks, right? The government.
I was referring to Blackstone. I just want to make, yeah. So Blackstone is the one that I'm 100% confident is not 80%
Okay.
in bonds.
But
Fair
they
enough.
both buy
The
real estate and they both develop
Blackstone,
real
the
estate.
majority of their portfolio, so there's different, it's like a third, a third, a third. The biggest third is in real estate. And actually, Blackstone has been the one that known as the real estate company, real estate like PE company. But anyways, and then I want to, after Chris is done, finish what I was saying about what Dan had said.
So all they're after is the spread. They don't care if inflation's outpacing the bond, right? Just so because the bond's guaranteed. If you're getting $1 trillion from the United States government and they're charging you 1% on that $1 trillion, and you turn around and buy a bond with it at 5%, right? You got a 4% spread there. It's free money. It's absolutely, it doesn't matter if it's not outpacing inflation, right? Because all you're doing is taking that $1 trillion at 1%, getting 4% in return, paying back that 1% and netting 3, right? It's free money. And this is what's going on. And this is how the individuals are getting fleeced.
No, but how Blackstone and other PE uses their money is they're hedging on where they can make the most money long term. A lot of that you can't just speculate based on a percentage, right? It's not guaranteed. Not almost less than 10% or less than 20% of Blackstone's assets are guaranteed. All of it is
goes
hedging.
back to discounted cash flows, right? Like,
So again,
we have to discount the future revenue, and so we have to analyze the business based on today and what that future revenue looks like. Does it keep up with inflation? Is it impacted
Right.
by market forces? And you discount the future because you don't know what's going to happen. So you're paying a premium for that future earnings, right? But it's at a discount. Like you're expecting when you're selling a company, it's discounted. Your future cash flow is discounted. Same thing when you buy a stock. You're gonna look, let's say Tesla. Okay, 10 years from now, what's the cash flow gonna look like?
Yeah.
And
Well,
you
again, you're
discount that
hedging
a
on
little
what
bit.
they're going to do. It's not a guaranteed 8% return to buy Tesla, you know. So same thing when Warren Buffett buys, equities, in a company. It's not necessarily guaranteed. He's hedging his bet.
Right.
But Chris, yeah, I want you to finish before I answer Dan.
well, I know if it were me and I was given $1 trillion by the government, I would do what these other companies are doing, right? I would take that $1 trillion that I have to pay back at 1%, and I would buy a guaranteed 4 or 5% return and pocket the difference. It's guaranteed. I would not buy
Yeah, but
anything
very
risky.
few of these PE are doing it that way. They would take that trillion.
Well, I don't know if the
and
government's giving them $1 trillion.
Yeah,
right?
well, I'm just saying that would be the safest bet, and
But
it
unlike
wouldn't
them,
necessarily be the bad way to go.
and
But
unlike them, they're not
they
just
would
giving
leverage
it.
that mother effer up like
And
nobody's.
they have, unlike you receiving a gift, they have investors to pay forward.
Right.
Like they have to
Yeah.
move money for them.
That's
As
right.
opposed to you just get as a gift. All right, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
4% of a
Because then
trillion.
there's zero
You don't need
Well,
risk.
to worry about shit.
this is
I
exactly
would
what
make the
banks are doing.
argument that you might get crushed in inflation,
Well,
But
and
there
your
is, but
investors are
inflate,
not happy because
but there is
they're
no
like, "What is this
inflation.
4%? Why am I
There is no
giving?"
inflation you care about. You're getting a
well,
guaranteed.
yeah, if
No, no,
if I
there's
could
not.
have
You're
bought,
getting
it's
guaranteed
opportunity.
5%. You're
It's
getting a
opportunity
guaranteed.
cost.
Okay.
It's opportunity.
So you get a,
What if I could have had 20% upside on real estate?
but that's a
I get
gamble.
fucking 5%.
That's a gamble.
It's a gamble, but if you have investors as your
I'm
stakeholders to
taking
pay,
guaranteed. I would take the guaranteed.
you
You're,
would. But
No,
what if you
you are
had
definitely going
investors?
to be subject to inflation.
And what if, Chris, you had
You're
under
definitely
your
subject
fund?
to that.
okay,
What if under
wait.
your
But
fund you had 1,000 people paying you a
I
monthly
don't
fee to
think
manage your money
I
for you?
don't think you're thinking about it correctly. You
Okay.
have to pay 1%.
Re-explain it.
Okay, so let's just do a easy math, $100. You're given $100 at a rate of 1%. So you have to pay back $101, right? Which you can reinvest at a guarantee of 105. You make $4. It doesn't matter what the inflation rate
It
is
does.
because no, it doesn't. Your purchasing power has increased guaranteed regardless of inflation.
But it doesn't. No. I
Opposed to
think this is
taking a
where the
gamble.
disconnect is. This is the
Opposed to taking,
disconnect.
there's no
When
disconnect.
inflation goes up, it makes that $100 worth less, the overall principal.
Yes, but you still have a gain. This is $4 you never would have had
Right.
otherwise, a guaranteed.
But if inflation is $4, you are now zero.
No,
You
you're
actually
not.
now lost money.
No, you didn't, Joey.
That's how inflation works.
No,
Yes.
you're wrong.
So
You're
this is how
absolutely
I'm right.
wrong.
This is how I'm right.
If
If you had
inflation,
100,000, if you had 100,000 in the bank in 2019,
do the math,
the,
Joey. You're
the
wrong.
bank is still giving you
Wait,
an
what's the
interest rate.
formula?
If
You're wrong, Joey.
inflation
That's
went
not
up,
how it works. So if
well, no.
inflation goes up
This
50%,
is how the real world works, and this is
Joey,
why
if
PE.
inflation goes up 50%, you have $4 you never would have had. Fine, your purchasing
No,
power is still
but
$2
if inflation went up
that you never would
50%,
have had.
your $100 is now worth $50. This is
No,
simple math.
no, Joey, you're not fucking thinking.
No,
'Cause
I am.
No, you're not. You're
This is
guaranteed a
classic.
1%. You're guaranteed a 1%. You get
I
the
understand
$100. No, you
the
don't.
interest
No, you
guarantee.
don't. No, you don't, because you're
But
not
it's
losing
inflation.
anything. You
When
will never
everything,
lose.
this
You
is
will never
you are
lose.
losing. You are losing because when inflation outpaced the market, it actually makes your return lower. Yes, you still got
I
the
agree with that.
$4.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
Okay, so think about what I just said.
No, I understand what you're saying.
No,
I-
because
I-
the last like 2 minutes you
So
said that I'm not
no,
thinking
no.
about it.
Okay, so one, you're talking hyper inflation. So,
No,
and
I'm
that's-
just saying
yes,
what
you
you're
are.
saying. I'm using
you're
your
not.
example.
But you're not.
No, okay.
right?
Here, all right, let me talk. This is this is how simple this is. $100, okay? You got 5%. I'm not discounting that you're not getting 5%.
No, I understand what you're saying.
I'm not-
You're invoking
But
hyperinflation.
if inflation, well, no, let's just say inflation was 7%.
Sure.
You really
Okay.
only made 2%, Chris.
No, that's not true.
Yes, because you need to offset, or actually, it might be the math might be a little bit different because if it's 7 off the principal, so because you need to counter in what is inflation doing with the overall market, just like you would take out fees, you would take out fees on no, that math is the same, right? Because if it's 7%
you're
inflation,
saying, I understand what you're saying, Joey.
okay,
so
do you now?
No, I did the whole time, Joey.
I don't think so. It's okay.
So you're saying, I get it. You have $93 of your 100 if it's a 7% interest rate.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Yes. Yep.
So that $5 gained doesn't replace your.
You lost.
You're saying you're losing $2.
No. I'm not saying that. You lost $2.
Yeah, that is what you said. I said the same. Okay. So you're saying
no. You did not say that.
No, I'm saying what you're saying, Joey.
Oh, okay.
So you're saying you lose.
You're repeating back what I'm communicating.
Exactly.
Okay.
So you lose $2.
In that's actually not, and that wouldn't even be hyperinflation.
Well, it would
This is
because these
exactly
it
why
would because the
PE, well, 7%, I don't know if that would be
it would
hyperinflation.
be on the term of these bonds, yes. 'Cause
Okay, okay,
they're usually 1 year bonds.
okay. Well, I mean, one could argue we've had over 7% inflation the last 4 years. So
Well,
like well over, which is why 100,000, this is exactly what I'm saying. 100,000 in 2019 would do a quarter of what it would do today.
I
You
think
know,
what Chris is saying is by just holding it in cash and not putting it in a bond, it's worse than
oh, I'm not saying
not
that. Yeah,
doing
that's
anything
fine.
because it's at least keeping up with something.
Well,
Like,
you're at least making money. Yes, I will give you
yeah,
that. But this is
you're not losing
exactly
as
why
much.
PE goes into alternative investments because they want to not only beat inflation, they want to do well above that. So that's why they're getting into real estate. They're getting into buying other companies. They want to
and I agree
10x,
with
100x.
and I agree with that. That's why I'm saying over the last, as you said, 10 years, things have changed.
But the only
Yeah,
difference is these PEs have thousands of investors that those investors
yeah,
pay them
for
a
sure.
monthly fee
Yeah,
to
yeah,
invest their money. So if they
yeah.
invest in something they can just do themselves, they're gonna say, "Why am I paying you this
Right,
fee? I expect not to lose my money, number one,
right,
and number
right.
two, I expect a better than market return on the money I give you if I'm paying you a fee."
So
Exactly.
and I'm not
Yes.
disagreeing. I all I'm saying is something's changed in the last 10 years, right? And I'm saying I believe it is inflation.
Oh, for sure. And
That's why
it's
they're turning to that.
and it makes it less desirable to invest in bonds. I mean, why would you do that? It's better than
Well,
putting in cash,
if
but
if you're about to retire or whatever, that I can have understanding too. But I mean, you know, yeah, but for the, especially with what asset values have been doing, I don't personally think that that's going to change too much. Now, I do think we will have recessions and all of that, but if you stay in the market over time, you're going to rebound. I think in the overall stock market and in real estate, that's just it's
if you
just
pick the right ones, because this discounted cash flow and now competition is very fierce. Like if you look at
yeah. But what about the
ChatGPT,
S&P 500? Let's say
yeah,
if you're in the S, maybe an index fund or something
yeah,
like that. I think over time,
and
over
that's the
10 years,
benchmark.
it's
That's the
up.
benchmark
Yeah,
for professional investors is can you
that's
beat the
right.
market and can you beat
Plus
the
their
index
fees,
funds
right? And a
plus
lot
their
of
fee?
people, most of them can't. Unfortunately, unless
No,
you're
yeah,
like an
most can't.
Amazon, like Blackstone, they're like the Amazon, Blackstone, BlackRock are like the Amazon of
Sure.
the PEs. But anyways,
I
but
think
yeah,
historically SPY is 8%
Yep,
yearly.
8%. Yep,
yeah, yeah,
yep.
that's right. Yeah, yeah, that's yeah. But
But these
even
private
then, I
equity
mean,
are buying private companies, right? And then, I mean,
they are.
that's the essence of the name, and then trying to get those returns or have a market where they could exit and get some liquidity to the public
Yeah.
markets or
Well,
the
I
secondary
think the reason
markets.
why it's changed is as they are running their calculation, real estate, their hedging is their hedge fund, they're hedging that it's going to be or it's going to be more superior,
Yeah,
in the coming future. And it sounds like they're going to, they're also speculating that people are going to rent longer, more people are going to rent,
yeah.
and they yeah. So
I
if
am,
they're
I do think real estate should be part of everyone's portfolio. I just don't know how much of it,
just hard to get in, as we are all saying.
and it's
It
hard to
takes
get in,
so much money.
and it's not liquid. It's the least liquid of the
Right.
place
Yeah.
asset allocation options. But
That's something I like to figure out. It's like if there's a way that, even with like 10K or 5K, if there's a way that like somebody
There
that
well,
I
is.
could,
the REITs were supposed to do that.
well, it's not for REITs, but if you wanted to like own it privately and to have yeah, so there are with REITs, even Grant Cardone and a couple others you can do, but you have to be accredited.
Yeah,
Actually,
I think you do
what
have to be.
there are some rules. It's still not easy. I like to try to figure that out. You can invest
Yeah,
a 40 grand or 50
but
grand or
now there
whatever
is
it
more
was.
competition for asset allocation than real estate. Like back in the day, It was kind of the tried and true. Now you have crypto, you have high tech stocks.
And
I
speaking
mean,
of
there's
crypto, 70
yeah.
BTC, 72, 73.
I honestly think Bitcoin's as important as real estate to have in your portfolio.
Mm,
And that was not something
I
you would
almost
say
have
10 years
none.
ago.
Dang.
And that was something you wouldn't say 10 years ago. So 10 more years, where does real estate, does it lose its importance? I mean, I could see a case where it does, where it's not as important as it is today, but individually, I think
But
the
how are
price
people,
still,
where are people going to live?
and BlackRock owned buildings. And
Okay.
Blackstone, it's a
Well,
possibility.
isn't
Like,
that part of 2030, Project 2030?
and that's where it gets into this stuff. Yeah. So,
Mm.
They intend to make 10-minute cities where everyone lives within 10 minutes of whatever they need. And
yeah,
everybody lives in these big, huge boxes.
yeah.
I think
But
that's
there,
2030.
Now, I
that's
think
like New
property
York.
owners
That's
still
like New
do
York.
well, but yeah, but no, but they want to make that everywhere. And I think
But
property owners
people
still
have
do
to
well.
choose that. I mean, people have the choice.
But if they
Again,
have
this
no
is why I
choice,
like
though,
capitalism.
if they have
But
no
they
choice,
do.
but check this theoretical thing
You could
out.
go to New York. You could
Well,
go to
What if,
San Francisco.
Dan's gonna go fear porn.
no, yeah, fear porn. Here's
Chris.
dystopian. Check this out, Joey.
Okay.
If BlackRock and Blackstone or whomever, they're all doing it, build enough new or refurbish enough new to where it's like half the price of owning your own, right?
Which is
And
just
it's
basically
nicer
like that now.
and
Yeah.
it becomes nicer. And they
Yeah,
start
which
adding
is like
other
it's like
amenities
now.
because they can do. It's not a hard choice for somebody who's struggling to make ends meet of their living situation. Like, yeah, I'm just gonna rent and who cares? I'll just buy crypto. And you have plenty of what up,
There's
Vader?
that type of customer, yes.
And you have plenty of wealthy people today that do not own real estate. So it's not mutually
Yeah, that
exclusive.
is
The real
yeah, that
estate
is
and
true.
wealth is no longer, and you can make the case for it. And I'm a real estate owner, long term,
Well,
less
it's the
important.
exception of people that don't own real estate that are super wealthy. So far, it's the exception.
But what
And
if
I
that
think that's
becomes
great.
the norm?
I think it's good that, yeah, you could just own nothing besides Bitcoin and be happy. Oh, okay.
Or stocks or companies. But what if that trend now, which is a exception, becomes as the decades grow into the century, then the rule, you know?
I think
That's
that would
my only
only be
concern.
under like a dictator because like I have some clients in China that like their luxury high rise is like a couple million, but their rent, if they were to rent it, it's like 1,200 a month. So a lot of these luxury high rises are, well, there's a couple of things at play here. A lot
Yeah.
of these are just vacant. I have several clients that have several high rises in China and Beijing, and it's just they don't rent. It's too they don't make enough to offset like the problems and the maintenance and the dealing with the tenant. So it's just kept vacant. Now, one argument could be said of, well, it's because they have way too much supply, so that there's you almost have to sell your soul to rent your unit.
Yeah, and
You
there's
know,
those
that's
ghost cities in China where it's like all these
exactly.
buildings,
They way overpaid,
but
or excuse me, overbuilt.
that's not out of
Um,
the realm of possibility here at some point. I guess the
you think
only
so?
saving grace is you have enough time to see that happening and
Hmm.
get out if you need to. I don't see that happening yet, but the big money is, like you said, getting into real estate.
Yeah, I
And
just don't understand why would you build a ghost town? Like it, because like why would developers do that if there's not the people? So even like going to
so
China, why?
government incentives,
But
investor
why would
return.
there be a government incentive to have nobody living somewhere? I don't understand the benefit to anybody.
But that's what happened in China. I mean, that's the outcome.
Right. No, I know. I'm confused. Why? Why would you,
I think they had plans for
besides a
expansion and
dictatorship?
they didn't realize their birth rates are declining and
Oh,
increasing,
I see. Okay.
which is also happening
So
here,
that
by the
actually, I was
way,
gonna say
which we
that could
have
be
not
something.
discussed.
But
Like
we
real
have a
estate,
lot of people coming into the country, so
and maybe that's a good thing. Like, hey, a fucking
yeah.
open border, let's rent more people. I gotta run though, guys. We got another call at 15 and I gotta get something to eat.
Awesome,
I
gentlemen.
thoroughly
Twitter.
We
enjoyed
didn't
it.
talk about religion. Gosh.
Twitter.
We didn't talk
And
about religion, but I got a book
But
review
interest
coming up
rates are at
soon.
7. Can you believe that? Interest
Thanks
that's
rates
to
a
are at
good
Chris.
one.
7%. I'll have to check that
Thanks
out.
to Chris. Just let's exit with a really quick quote. Okay.
Uh-oh.
Hold on. I'll just do random. Notice the masochistic tendencies of leftist tactics. Leftists protest by lying down in front of vehicles. They intentionally provoke police or racists to abuse them. These tactics may often be effective, but many leftists use them not as a means to an end, but because they prefer masochistic tactics. Self-hatred is a leftist trait.
Mhm.
On that
This is
note,
random. Random.
toodaloo. Yeah.
Like, subscribe, comment, share, guys. Bye-bye.